Here. Yeah. We've been locked up for a few years. That's kind of nice to get back out and see people's faces, and it's just different. I mean, the interaction's different. So we've gotten a lot smarter about the way we connect with the community. We're doing a lot more virtual events, virtual trainings, and just even the material that we cover is different. So in a lot of ways, a lot of good things have come of this, but it's just been, we've been pivoting. As I talked to somebody about yesterday, we've just had to pivot and figure out smarter ways to do things. But I am with the U.S. Small Business Administration. As he mentioned, I've been there 23 years in pretty much every area that we cover. So I want to share with you a little bit about our programs. I'm economic development now. That's actually when I came into the community, into the organization 23 years ago. It was economic development and trying to provide outreach to minority communities, because there was no marketing when I came on board. And then they started centralizing our programs, and I got pulled into lending, and I was in lending, for SBA for 13, 14 years. And then when I had the opportunity to go back into economic development, I did that because I enjoy it, and getting out to talk to people and share information on our program. So we are a federal agency. We have a very small staff. We have 7 people. We have 8 if you count our director. So we have basically, well, she does all the high level stuff, but when it comes to the functional areas, we've got basically three functional areas. We have economic development, and at this point, I'm the only one because the other girl retired. So I'm covering the state of Oklahoma. We have 2 lender relations specialists, and they're the ones that work with the banks, help them determine which programs may be best for a particular deal, provide training, just whatever they need to do, working with helping the banks in any way they can. Which of course, the last few years that was a whole different thing. We got a lot more into the COVID programs and disaster programs and that type of thing. Then we don't normally handle that. What we do is all for-profit, economic growth, just trying to develop opportunities, create jobs, that type of thing. So disaster was a little different, but we have helped out. I processed loans during Katrina, and I did some during COVID too for the restaurant revitalization fund. So, we do what we need to do and try to keep everything moving and serve the community. So the lender relations specialists, as I mentioned, work with the banks. And then we have the business opportunity specialists, and we have 2.5 of those. And they're the ones that work with companies that want to contract with the government. So they handle our 8A program, HUBZone program. I'll get into that in more detail. So the other thing that we have is resource partners. Because we are so small and we cover the state, we have 3 different groups that we provide grant funding to, and they're the ones that actually do the one-on-one counseling. So we don't do that. We were talking about that earlier, how, we're not in the office that much, even now, because people don't come in to see us. They go see our resource partners. We have a great group here in Stillwater with the Small Business Development Center, and they are our international trade specialists. So but of course they help all small businesses. So they are one of, I think we have like 15 or 16 small business development centers throughout the state. They are full-time paid staff that they not only receive funding from us, but through consortium, state organization. They're affiliated with colleges and universities and receive matching funds through other organizations. And they have a lot more in the way of, they predominantly work more with existing businesses, trying to help them grow, expand things, specialty areas like international trade, whatever they're looking at, manufacturing, contracting. And then we have the SCORE, which is a group of volunteers, and they provide mentoring based on their experience, and whether it was owning a business or running a business, and they are giving back to the community. So it started out as a retired group, and now there's a lot of them that still work, but they're wanting to contribute and share their knowledge just to help other small businesses that didn't have that when they were starting. And then we have the Women's Business Centers, and that is through Rural Enterprises of Oklahoma. They're based out of Durant. Our SBDC state office is in Durant as well. So REI has 3 locations: Durant, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa. But they do a lot of circuit ride type things. They're out in the field a lot. They do a lot of training, a lot of networking events. I think a lot of people will see events that they have. They do virtual. We've all gotten better with virtual events. And so we're able to reach the rural communities in Oklahoma a lot better. And so that we have seen, we're kind of touching more people than we were able to do before. When I was economic development for the eastern half of the state, I was always traveling and visiting chambers and Rotaries, economic development groups, going to conferences. And this is a way we can kind of blend that and just kind of share the information on our programs and connect people with our resource partners, because they're the ones that are actually out in that area, sitting down, talking to small businesses one-on-one. So once the first, people always say, what is my first step? It's working with those resource partners. It's going in and talking to them, free training, free counseling. They will sit down and talk to you about whatever your situation is, help you develop a business plan, financial projections that you would then take to your lender to get a loan if you need one. We encourage business plan for everybody, because that really helps you focus on where you are, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, at what point do you want to get financing to expand, where do you want to go, all that. So it's just such an important piece. And that's really what we feel is the safety net for our lending program. And the loan programs, we loan or we guarantee, we don't directly lend the money, the banks do, and we guarantee that up to $5 million. And it has to be a for-profit business, but it enables banks to make deals that they couldn't make under their normal guidelines. So if they have a client that they've worked with for years and so, I know this is a good deal, I feel good about it, but under our normal banking guidelines, they don't have enough collateral, they don't have enough equity injection. They're able to use the government guarantee to make a deal that they couldn't normally make. And SBA really, we encourage them to work with borrowers, and we always tell borrowers, your banker's your best friend, go talk to him if anything's going on. And because the idea is to keep that business open and keep those jobs in play. So anyway, that's a big part of our program is the loan programs, and it does allow longer terms and less equity injection. So there's some advantages there. And then our contracting program. So if a business is wanting to contract with the government, whether it's federal, of course, that's, our bailiwick, but even state government contracting, they prepare them for that as well. Our resources help with that. The Small Business Development Center helps with that, but we work with the PTACs or the tech centers. They have what has historically been called the Bid Assistance Network. They've just changed it to Apex, but there is a group of counselors that is what their specialty is. And again, that's free of charge. So, and I'll say predominantly free of charge as far as all these resources. All the counseling training is free unless it's some kind of specialized thing, but it's never a requirement. But some great resources. We all network a lot and just try to stay on top of different opportunities and just to really coach small businesses when they contact us or our resource partners. So anyway, that's basically our lending, contracting, the resource partners. I mentioned SCORE, SBDC, the women's centers. They're the front line. They're the ones that are out there counseling, doing a lot of training. One of the things that I've done in the last year since COVID, since I'm not getting out as much, I thought instead of just doing presentations on SBA programs, how can I do more, give people more than that? So it's not just repetitive information all the time. So I've started doing trainings with our partners throughout the state and on focus areas that I know are important to small businesses. So we do follow, we look at what are our national, nationally, I can't remember what they're called, but anyway, national months like Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Women's History Month. This month is actually Financial Literacy Month. So we have a former SBA lender that's going to talk about credit, how important credit is, not only personally, but how that impacts your business credit, SBA loan or just a straight bank loan, and just things for people to kind of think about. A lot of people think, well, my personal credit and my business credit are separate, and they're not. I mean, SBA has guidelines, and we do, our loan programs enable the bank to use, we put a cap on the interest rates that they do with the SBA program, but the bank is one that actually sets the interest rates. But that does kind of play in to how those businesses are affected. And I know the interest rates are interesting right now. So, but anyway, the financial literacy is this month. We're doing one next month on networking. And that is with Jennifer Edwards. She's with our REI Women's Business Center. She's the program manager for that program, talking about the importance of networking and how to grow your business and making those connections. And we also have an event, a training coming up, and these are all virtual, so it is statewide, on how to find your target market. And that's actually with the Tulsa Library. Tulsa Library has a economic development whole section in their library, which is phenomenal. And I've worked with them for years on different trainings of small businesses. And they just recently set up a series of training events. And I'm working with I work with other libraries as well, but I think they're kind of ahead in that respect. But they have a tool that people can access at the public library. It's free, where you can go in and drill on your market area and find your potential clients and how to reach those clients and everything. So we're going to do a session on that. I have one coming up on rural business. We're going to partner with USDA on that, their rural development group, which the funding side of it. I have another one on ag that's coming up to talk about ag communities and financing and just access to resource partners, the people that help those groups. Talking about one on incubators. So I'm really trying to touch on areas that people don't necessarily have access to, because they go to they all have their own organizations, and trying to kind of pull it all together and see how we all work together, because we are statewide, but all the federal agencies, state agencies, these nonprofits that provide counseling and training, and how we all tie together. So, and try to kind of make sense of that. And it's, okay, you can talk to this person about this, or even if you talk to this person, they'll lead you to this person, that type of thing. So we've changed the way we're trying to get that information out, always open to ideas on areas that people are looking for information. But I really wanted to share today about really what our programs are, the lending programs, contracting programs, and then the resource partners, which are key. I mean, they're frontline and phenomenal resources. PTACs, libraries, as I mentioned, tribes. I'm actually a Native American Affairs representative, so I work with the tribes, helping them, trying to figure out not only utilizing the programs for the tribes, but for tribal members. And some of them have developed small business development centers. They provide technical assistance, so we work with them however we can. And so anyway, that's a very high level kind of what SBA does. But I would be happy to answer any questions. Hopefully that triggered some thoughts on what, not necessarily what we do, but if you have anything specific that you want to ask about access to resources.
Where is the Small Business Association Center, or here, the one you talked about here?
Okay, so I'm the Small Business Administration, that's federal.
Right.
The Small Business Development Center is our grantee, and they are, I should know the building on campus, but I can't remember. But it's a business, building. It's named after somebody. I don't know. That's terrible. But I can hook you up.
I was just curious because I didn't even
Yeah.
realize there was that you had local representatives here.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think so. It's a international, there's a group that's specific to international.
Wes Watkins, maybe.
Wes Watkins, thank you. Yeah, Wes Watkins. Yeah, and that's really what their focus is, but they help all small businesses and with whatever their needs are. But that people from all over the state will contact them to do international business. And I recently did a session with some people on international trade. Not only we have export loan programs, and we had our person out of Dallas Fort Worth that handles that. He was on the call. But we also had somebody from Shawnee, the Citizen Potawatomis, have Iron Horse Industrial Center, and that's a native owned, of course, in Oklahoma, with so many native lands. There are opportunities for the tribes to do things or tribal companies to do things on those tribal lands. But like that industrial park, they do a lot of they import and export out of there, and there are tax benefits to that. So those are the kind of things, trying to let people know there's so many different things that you can. We're working a lot with Department of Commerce as well. They have an international group. I went to a Main Street event on Tuesday down at the Capitol, and we're looking at how we can better tie all the resources together to help small businesses in Main Street. Department of Environmental Quality, I met with them yesterday, and they have permits. They're trying to build their connection with economic development people on the permits that they provide and the assessments that they do, environmental assessments that they do. So we're trying to kind of be a clearinghouse, so to speak, of, okay, we may not do this directly, but here are the people that you can go to. So, yes, sir.
So two questions. First is, does the SBA provide grants as well as loans to small businesses? That's my first question.
Okay.
And then my second question is, do you partner with any venture capital firms like, for example, I2E in the state of Oklahoma?
Yes, we work with I2E. There's a lot of different organizations that we work with similar to that. And just trying to keep connected with them. I wouldn't say we work closely with them, but they try to stay on top of our programs. We try to stay on top of theirs. We don't have grants. In my 23 years, we never had grants until COVID, and now they're all gone. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that may or may not have been a one-time thing. And they may have had grant. I think they did have grants before I was ever around. But the problem with the grants was people would get the grants and start a business. And then when it got tough, it was easy to close because they didn't have anything invested. And then people lost jobs and all that. So there's not 100% financing. They want everybody to have some money in it. There are some organizations that provide matching funds. Tribal entities will do that in some cases. MetaFund is one that we work with, and I think they have some grants or assistance. I mean, nothing huge. I2E, of course, but they're definitely a special niche of the types of business. We guarantee loans that are made by traditional lenders. So you would go to your local bank, and that's another thing I'll point out is we really encourage you to work with local banks because during, I think a lot of people have kind of gotten used to just, I'm going to Google this, and they get on and see something online. But the problem is, like during COVID, they would be given a loan and then they couldn't contact those people. And we don't have a relationship with those online lenders because they're not based in Oklahoma. The only ones we have a personal relationship with are the ones that are based in Oklahoma, in the Oklahoma district office. So you can call our office and say, I'm having trouble getting a hold of this lender, or I have a question on this, and we can kind of work through that with you. But when it's online lender, we're kind of stuck. So, and of course we want to support our community as well. Yes, sir.
Do you do any work with the various business accelerators around the state, such as the Thunder Launchpad or accelerators at OSU and OU?
Yes. So like Tom Love, and the Launchpad in Edmond. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I knew there's one in Edmond, so maybe it's a different one, but there are so many all throughout the state, incubators, accelerators. That's probably an area that I need to work on a little more, because it's a lot to keep up with. I know like TEDC, Tulsa Economic Development Corporation is getting ready to, they're putting one together, and they're one of our resource partners. They handle our 504 program and our microloan program. As does REI has our microloan program, and they have their own programs, but they use ours as well. But there's a lot of partner organizations. It's just trying to keep up with all those. And that's another webinar that I'm wanting to do. Kathy Curtis with Department of Commerce. I talked to her about doing a session on incubators and accelerators, and maybe having some speak to kind of explain how they work. And they all have specialty areas. So depending on, of course, they're all over. You can go in and just do general business space and shared space type things. But then there's also like manufacturing, restaurant. They have little specialty places too. So, but that's something that we can help find for people if that's something they're interested in, and just trying to figure out what's the best place for you to be based on your type of industry. So that's what the resource partners walk through that with you. Get your business plan together. Okay, here are some resources for you. If you don't want to open a business, you can start here and grow, that type of thing. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned COVID, and there were a lot of businesses that went out of business during COVID.
Right.
And those that survived probably have dug themselves pretty deep into a hole. Do you have any programs to help those folks try to get out of the hole they've dug themselves into because of COVID? And where there's the COVID survivors, I'm sure
Yeah.
many of them,
Yeah.
small business, are really hurting.
Well, and there were some grants, and there were some forgivable loans. And so a lot have been forgiven. So are you saying outside of those, or people that maybe didn't get theirs forgiven, or are you just saying they're still needing help even after that? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't really know of anything right now that they're doing. We're not anticipating getting any more funding. I think, we've gotten all we're going to get. They're just trying to work with people as much as they can. So there were criteria that they set for whatever reason. I know, I think with all those programs, they started out with a set of criteria, but when they saw they're missing a need, a community that wasn't fitting, they tried to adapt that to let people in. But there's always going to be some that fit outside that guidelines, whether it's the age of the business, whether it's their, they can't track their, their income, because they haven't been in business long enough or whatever, or the type of industry, or maybe they didn't have an account and it wasn't tracked properly, or as thorough as it could have been. So though there were some outliers, but other than that, it would just be a matter of going to talk to the resource partners. There are things at the state level, at local level, the tribal level, where they're doing things that are outside of what we do, that those resource partners would know about, because they coordinate a lot more with the state and regional groups, and would know about other potential grants or assistance.
I should have asked this very first since I had the microphone anyway, but what qualifies a business as a small business?
They have to, okay, so there's the size standards and it's called a NAICS code, NAICS. It's North American Industrial Classification System. But it's your size standards. So for every industry, and there's a ton of them, and they're on our website, you can go and just do a search for size standards and go in and find your particular industry. And it'll say, based on your industry, you have to have less than 500 employees and X number of dollars of sales. So that's all you have to do to self-certify as a small business. And 99% of the businesses in Oklahoma are considered small under our guidelines. A lot of people don't realize that those guidelines are set that high. So if you only, I mean, it's when you have people that own multiple businesses, they may own in different industries, they have to look at all of them and combine them. And then if you have owners, you may have 3 owners with this business and 5 owners with this and 3 with this. And by the time you combine all the assets, yeah, they may bust out. But typically most individual business will qualify. So it's worth looking at that size standard. They have to be owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen. And that's with their contracting programs as well. We always encourage 51% ownership because if you have, like for the contracting, they're looking at socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. So those are minorities are automatically assumed to be socially and economically disadvantaged. But the business has to be 51% owned. If there's a woman and a minority or a woman and a vet and they're 50-50, they cancel each other out. So that's why that 51% is so important. So because it has to be that 51% owner has to be the decision maker, and that's how they qualify is under that. So, but we have set asides in the contracting program for 8A program. Hub zone is historically underutilized business zone. Again, Oklahoma lands are all considered hub zone. And so most of Oklahoma is hub zone. If the business is located in a hub zone, they have to be a U.S. citizen. They have to have 35% of their employees have to live in any hub zone, not the same one, but any hub zone is basically the criteria for that. But yeah, small business, for profit, it has to be a for-profit business. The ones that we can't help are speculative businesses or passive. So where we can help with a hotel or motel, but we can't help with apartments because with a hotel motel, you have people in there running it. Of course, creating jobs and everything. With an apartment complex, it's passive income. So that's kind of where you get into, what's eligible and not eligible on that. So it's different for every industry. Some of the medical stuff is eligible. We used to not be able to do mini storages. We can do that now. It depends on how they receive their money and who's there, when, and that
So
kind
if
of
you
thing.
think you might qualify, call.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, and that's
Go
where
to the website, and websites are
Yeah.
very helpful, which is what we've
Yeah.
learned today.
Right. And I brought my cards. My cards are around, and I can connect you with our resource partners. But they have at their website, you go on, you can see all kinds of training. And they also have, you request counseling online, and then based on, if you say I'm a restaurant in Stillwater, they will connect you to the best counselor, and they may not be in Stillwater, they may be in Durant, but they're tying you to the person that has experience for your industry. And all of their advisors have incredible expertise in a bunch of different areas. They really try to cover everything. And but they're all general business people too, so they can help anybody. So any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindi. Thank you very much. Let's give Cindi another great big hand.